Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name's Joe Kuzma, joined here by my good colleague and pal, one Mr. Brian E. Roach. Brian, I'd ask you how you're doing. I've been dealing with holiday stress. Pittsburgh Steelers, once again, going down to the very last play, down to the wire. Did not help those stress levels. You feeling about the same way?
So, I keep trying to remind myself that early in this season, I wrote the season off and said on this program that I didn't care what happened. And then this team decided to make me hope for things. And so I'm annoyed with them right now because I should not be caring at all what happens, and I am. And therefore, the dead, beaten carcass of a game that they put up on Sunday annoys me.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know where to start with this one. I will say, though, that
Start with the good?
Well, yeah, but I don't know if we'll agree with the good. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. Some of the people that call in, let me talk about the fan base for a second. And it's like every time the team loses, people can't handle losing. And then
that's true.
And they honestly, but their idea of winning is also like skewed. It's like I equated this to the Philadelphia Eagles fans weeks ago when I was talking about this. It's like they could win the Super Bowl, but if they didn't win in a blowout fashion and Barkley has like 200 yards rushing and the defense forces 5 turnovers, that's not good enough. Fire the coach and everything else. It's not good enough. You must utterly dominate every single game. Not to say that playing against a 3-win team in your division shouldn't mean you should have some expectation of winning, provided the way the Steelers have been playing over the last 3 games. But you also have to remember that this 3-win team, it's not like the Titans, it's not like the Raiders. This is a team with a top 5, maybe top 3 defense. And I think one of our keys to the game was the way to win this was to make the Browns one-dimensional and to wear down their defense, to which the Steelers defense did a pretty darn good job, aside from the scripted beginning of the game, and the Browns executed 2 big plays on a touchdown drive. Fannin, of course, as soon as he went down, I was like, well, that dude's hurt and he's out. He was trying to make it a go to even play. He popped up late on the injury report. So their biggest weapon, the rookie tight end, Njoku already being out, they hit Judy, they hit Njoku. They did it with some matchups. They were trying to play against some matchups. They were moving chess pieces. They were trying to throw if Malik Harrison was out there. I thought the Steelers defense adjusted very well. There was a communication problem, and this is still, I think, some newness. You've got guys that haven't been on this team for the whole year. Some of them only for a month or so. Kyle Duggar, Asante Samuel. That was the Fannin TD. Right there. And then, of course, Chuck Clark moving out into coverage one-on-one and just getting burned by Jerry Jeudy there. And that was the ball game. You would think if we told you that the Cleveland Browns are only going to score 10 points in this game, that the Pittsburgh Steelers would have an opportunity to win. If they would force multiple turnovers on Shedeur Sanders, that they would have a chance to win. And they had chances, but they utterly blew them because the offense did not bring bless you, my friend,
excuse me.
Did not the offense was not in sync, and I don't know that there's one single person that you could blame. I know you're giving me that look, but it's true. Who do you blame, and who's your scapegoat for, quote, losing this game? For me, it's not really the defense. I know they weren't awake at the beginning, but if they give up those points, you were expecting this team that went toe-to-toe with the Lions, score for score, tit for tat, to be able to do something with the Cleveland Browns, and it didn't. And I think the one narrative that's coming out of this is that they were more afraid of losing the sack, or letting Myles Garrett set the sack record. I don't necessarily agree with that. Is that on their mind? Not Myles Garrett's record. I would say Myles Garrett was on their mind, more or less, more than anything else. because he has to be, or else he's going to wreck your game plan, whether there's a record on the line or not. But to say that certain members of this team didn't come to play or didn't want to win, I think that's bullshit.
Well, I
man.
think that's nonsense.
Yeah, that's nonsense.
Think that's bull. Look, the defense played well enough to win the game. There's no question about that. They played well enough to win the game against a team that was limping into the game. Didn't have their running game solid, missing one of their tight ends, have their third or fourth quarterback of the season playing. Look, the defense played well enough to win. Yes, the secondary was exposed a little bit early on, and I'm sort of surprised that they weren't able to continue, but I'll give the Steelers credit for maybe making some adjustments into the zone and the coverage that they were using, because receivers were just blatantly wide open all the time in those first couple drives. That's probably also the inexperience of the quarterback at the time. So, the game was within reach. The game was within reach up until the very last play. The game was still within reach. Where my problem is what I believe was shown in this game is just how ineffective they are at utilizing the offensive weapons that they have. When DK Metcalf is no longer available to you, that means there's no threat at the receiving position, none. And that was evident. There was nobody that scared them. They could cover Gainwell out of the backfield, who was their leading receiver. Austin wasn't there. Metcalf's not there. Who are you afraid of? Adam Thielen? No. Marquez Scandling? No. He can't catch a ball to save his life, really. I'm just not. I don't think they know what to do. I know it's not just us, but other shows have been saying the same thing. Well, maybe throw the ball to Pat Freiermuth. Oh my God, why would you say such a thing? Horrible idea. Who would ever think to throw the ball to Pat Freiermuth? We said at the beginning of the season that was going to be your receiver number 2. Turns out it's Kenneth Gainwell, who is actually not your receiver number 2. He's your WR1.
Out of this one, right?
That's my issue. My issue is the offense. They weren't just out of sync. They just didn't have ability to do anything. They couldn't run effectively consistently. They ran pretty well at times, but then they'd get away from it and they'd try and be cute and they'd try and do something else. The screens that never worked. They're going after Campbell constantly.
That's all we were talking about.
He's meeting the challenge every single time. This is the number one defense in the league.
Was he though, or was Rodgers missing some of those throws too? Maybe it was more the Steelers losing than Camel winning. I mean, and you're throwing to who? Who are you throwing to? MVS and Scotty Miller.
He won the screen coverage almost every single time. The screens were useless. I'm gonna keep saying it over and over and over again. This is the best defense in the league, the Browns defense. That statistically, they're the best defense in the league. So what you saw was, against the best defense in the league, this offense stinks. And especially stinks when you take away some of their weapons. I don't know that they looked all that great in the first game either, but they certainly looked pathetic in this game. My fear is that what we saw yesterday is likely to be repeated come Sunday against not quite as good a defense, but a defense that has been upcoming simply because they just don't have weapons. They don't have weapons.
Yeah, and I wasn't I try not to be too down on the defense because they did what they needed to do. They shook Shador. They forced them to, they had some turnovers. They had opportunities. The whole topic on this show is the missed chances. And those missed chances were, you boil it down to a handful of plays. You got no points off of these turnovers. Kyle Duggar,
0.
Jack Sawyer with the picks. They forced it. Nick Herbig had one bounce right off his hands. That was a surefire walk-in pick six. Of course, I didn't see the TV broadcast, Brian, because I was there. But did Tony Romo say that was a surefire touchdown? Oh, my God, Jim, I don't know.
He did not. Of course not, because it was the Steelers instead of the Browns.
Yeah.
So and yeah, it went right through his hands. It didn't really bounce off, but he didn't. That's why he's a defensive player.
Well, he's a defensive player because he's damn good at it, but it was still like, that was a missed opportunity. Another one going for the fourth down play again after Camel was that Scantling or Scotty Miller, I think, on that one. And it was just run the freaking football. I know we weren't texting as much because, there was some rain and stuff there. I couldn't get to my phone all the time. And, the weather did impact some of this as well. Obviously, the Chris Boswell field goal. You asked me about the wind, and I was just like, I was trying to figure it out. The flag was whipping in one direction on the one end of the stadium, like on the south end of the stadium, the north end of the stadium. The flag was whipping in a completely different direction. And I was like, I think they were damned if they do and damned if they don't. Which side do you pick on the coin toss, right? And Boswell missing that, it's such a killer because that final drive, that could be, instead of, going 3 times to Valdez-Scantling. And of course, we've criticized so many other quarterbacks that have been here in the past, and Aaron Rodgers misses maybe a wide open, straight across the middle Kenneth Gainwell for what might be, it could be at least tying there. In fact, I didn't think the Steelers had a chance after they went and stunk it up right before the 2-minute warning. Somehow they forced a field goal and got the ball back. So anybody that's thinking about defense and a 3-win team and this, goodness, I went up and down this possession chart right in the drives, and after the first quarter, they give up the real 2 big plays, 6 plays for 86 yards and the touchdown. After they stopped the Browns for a turnover on downs, then they got a pick, they forced 2 punts, they got another pick, they forced 2 punts, and then they held them to a field goal. That's pretty darn good. It should be good enough to get the job done. Cleveland has been holding a lot of teams to, practically nothing. And we were trying to figure out where in this game could they, where could the Steelers, where do you not have a good feeling about this game? And there's a lot of areas. One was, you've got Andreas Pete in for Isaac Seumalo. You've got Dylan Cook in at left tackle. Pete was playing at left tackle first because Broderick Jones being hurt. Cook commits his first penalty in this game. Otherwise, I thought fairly solid job, and trying to give Rodgers some time. But this team, like you said, gets away from running the football because they're trying to stretch the field to the sides and keep the pass rushers away. But all you're doing is you're throwing the ball there and losing 3 or 4 yards and putting yourself into, instead of like a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1, or something where you can manage to do the tush push stuff. They needed to start thinking a little more aggressively in this game than they did. They needed to play those 3rd down plays instead of for like a home run shot, was to get you into the 4th and manageable. And then when they do, they take a deep shot to freaking Scotty Miller instead of just taking the points that were there. I'm sure the analytics were against that too. That drove me crazy to no end. It's tough for me, Brian, because I had that uneasy feeling too. The Browns have been guarding their home turf pretty well. We
haven't won there in 5 years, or 6 at this point.
Yeah, I told you the weather was going to be off. Don't want to blame the weather, but if you look at it from the other perspective, the Steelers' defense benefited from the weather as much as the Browns did it also. So it's an AFC North game. The matchup was there. The defense is there. Some of the fans showed up. It was a very heavy Steelers presence there. There was actual crowd noise at points for Sanders. Had to go to a silent count, I believe, when that game got a little thicker into the near the end of the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter. But they have like a decent long drive, end up with nothing. They get nothing off of these turnovers, and it's just, that series that went 13 plays goes 42 yards. You missed that field goal. It feels like when Boswell misses a field goal, then it's like, well, all is lost, you know what I mean? And unless the defense was going to gift you the ball right on the doorstep in front of the dog pound or something, it wasn't going to happen in this game. It just felt like, I called it a struggle bus. And I don't know that I know what a struggle bus is, but it was definitely a struggle for sure, offensively for both these teams.
Yeah, it was. You expect it to be a difficult chore for the Browns because they're a team in transition. Based on what we had seen the last couple of weeks from the Steelers, you didn't expect that to be the case here. What you couldn't, as I said earlier, what you couldn't anticipate was the impact not having DK Metcalf was going to have, not having Calvin Austin was going to have. The fact that your top 2 targets in your wide receiver group are not there was just, I think, devastating to how they wanted to run their offense. As they said repeatedly during the broadcast, all those throws to Marquez Valdez-Scantling would have been throws to DK Metcalf.
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
You would have had a better shot at winning those with DK than you did with Scantling. Look, I'm not so upset that they lost. I did. I picked them to lose. I mean, I know I said I'm going to pick them to lose constantly, but I really did think they would lose this game. Not in the way they lost it. I actually thought that they would perform a little better than they did offensively, but I just figured, look, I do follow the trends. I say this every time we have to go to Philadelphia. We haven't won in Philadelphia in a million years. So if we go there, we're going to lose. You know, somebody would say, well, the odds have to be in our favor. And I would say, no, we just don't play good there. We haven't won in Cleveland in 5-something years. You know, so I didn't think we were going to win this game. I've said from the beginning of the season, even if the Browns are bad, we'll split with them. Why? Because we don't win in Cleveland. Not right now. As they mentioned on the broadcast, the last Steelers quarterback, not named Ben Roethlisberger, to win a game in Cleveland also wore number 8.
Bubby? Was Bobby
Tommy
8?
Maddox.
Tommy Maddox. Oh my goodness. I was gonna say, because Batch didn't. I was there for that one.
Yeah.
I think there was like 5 turnovers by the Browns and 7 by the Steelers in that game. That was like a bunch of backups in that one way back when. I was there the one time when Lance Moore was celebrating a touchdown when they got smoked, and that was with Roethlisberger on the field still. A prime Steelers team, you know? So this stuff happens. There's going to be, I got so much that's on my brain here. And one of it is like, oh, you're going to make excuses for this. And Tomlin sucks and Arthur Smith sucks. I actually thought that some of the play calls by Arthur Smith, there's head scratchers at times. And you're trying to, maybe they got too cute. The screen passes were just driving me insane. Some of the run versus pass selections, if that's Smith versus Rodgers making a change at the line. I thought that I've been thinking that Rodgers has been doing he's been a master class at catching too many players on the field, quick snaps, getting guys in a neutral zone, getting free plays, stuff of that nature. Which, by the way, we still have to talk about officiating for this game, but it's not the reason the Steelers lost. Could have been a reason they won, but they had so many other chances, like we have said. And you're relying on, you finally get Freiermuth involved at the very end, but you're relying on Scotty Miller. You're relying on Valdez-Scantling, 9 targets, 3 catches for 21 yards. Miller, 7 targets, 3 catches for 25 yards. You get Jonnu Smith finally involved, but it's 5 catches for 18 yards. That's 3.6 per average. It's all short crap. Darnell Washington breaks his arm, goes to the locker room, done. Might not be there for next. How much does that take out of your playbook, out of your repertoire? He's a weapon. He's a guy that you hit in the middle of the field, maybe 2 yards short of the sticks, and they're gonna, we'll give everything in front of us, and then you can't tackle him. Tyson Campbell ain't gonna tackle that guy. So, and then Gainwell, use him or Warren a little bit. Warren wasn't targeted at all. Gainwell 3 for 12, but I was joking around. You probably remember this, and I think it was against Cleveland a few years ago where it was just send Najee Harris.
Najee Miller.
Yes. Miller. Well, he's coming up. He'll be in the 2028 draft. But anyways, Najee Harris, it was just a little wheel route or just a little chip and turn, and they would hitch him right in the middle of the field. It was just dump. There were several drives that were just all Harris that particular game that year. And there was a drive here in this game where they hit Gainwell twice like that, and then they end up hitting Freiermuth the same. And it's just like, keep going there. And it was available at the end of the game, and it just drives you crazy. There was some creativity. They did the Mark Andrews play that the Ravens ran against the Browns several weeks ago on the 4th down. They did the same thing with Connor Hayward. The little fake pitch and boop, just tucked and gone, and he's gone. Connor Hayward, a cog in the machine. This was certainly a team that's beatable, but I don't want to make it sound like they were going to mop the floor with them either. Is that an indictment of like Mike Tomlin? Is that an indictment of Arthur Smith or anything? I think there's still enough here. Now, I don't know about Washington. His status doesn't look it doesn't look promising.
That looks bad.
That looks real bad. But this line held up pretty good with Pete and Cook against a good Browns defensive front. And that Browns defensive front is light years better than what the Baltimore Ravens have. James Pierre might be back. Brandon Echols being out of this game meant they couldn't run a whole lot with their secondary. The Steelers had to run. They were running like a 4-3 with the 3 linebackers at times just to kind of prevent the run. That meant that you had Harrison and Queen and Wilson on the field at the same times. You had Chuck Clark in as one of the safeties when you had to shove Ramsey over into like a nickel roll. A lot of that stuff disappeared as soon as Ramsey was playing as a free safety instead. But you saw the big play to Judy because Clark was in there. So some of these matchups, some of the things that the Browns were doing, I mean, Shedeur still completed more passes than I would have liked to. It would have been nice to get more pressure on him, but perhaps you get TJ Watt back for this game. So maybe the Steelers can reload a little bit. It's good to know that Pittsburgh is hosting this game. Prime time, they should be up for it. The just sad fact of this is that they could have had it sewn up already. Ravens could have lost on Saturday, and I mean, it's not like the Packers. The Packers were depleted. They were already without Parsons. They had linemen going down in the game. Yeah, and then without Love, I mean, Malik was doing his thing. Malik Willis was doing his thing. I believe that Aaron Rodgers could beat them in the same facet. I think the Steelers are better. We just have flashbacks last year with Henry just mowing everybody down. We're going to cover that later in the week. I think that they did well. They bottled up the run. There were some times where they were a little leaky, but let's get TJ Watt back out there. You don't have to play Jeremiah Moon in the rotation. It'll be better to have Herbig in that rotation or Sawyer in that rotation. I'm not all doom and gloom. There's people that are already writing off the 9-7 team. We kind of had an inkling that this was going to be for all the marbles. We were not expecting the Steelers to go out there and beat the Detroit Lions. So we were already looking forward to this, ahead to this game to begin with.
Yeah.
And regardless if they would have dropped both of them, this game still would have been for all the marbles because the head-to-head, someone's going to be 4-2 in the division, maybe a matching record, and then, so be it. So it sucks. They could have had it. The t-shirts and hats were probably waiting on standby to say AFC North champions. Trust me, I'm disappointed about that. Fire Tomlin stuff and fire coaching staff stuff, that's a conversation for another day. Let's see what happens next week. They drop both of these and they end up out of the postseason and not winning the division after holding it for pretty much first place throughout the whole year. We've got some serious conversations to have, but let's see if they get there. Let's see if they get to 10 wins. They're currently 9-7. Let's see if they get to the postseason. Let's see how they handle Baltimore. Let's see what this all entails here within the coming weeks before, I'm going to start with all the pitchforks and torches, because then this show will be another hour long or, longer than it needs to be. But it was a very ugly game. Both teams played ugly football. It's about what you expect with AFC North football, particularly when you're up against the Cleveland Browns. Hats off to them for, they bottled up Myles Garrett. The defense did its job. I think, Brian, the one thing, this will be right. I'm going to hand you this on a silver platter. I do believe that this team is playing much better on both sides of the line than they were at the beginning of the year, and that usually bodes well when you get into December and then into playoff football. So let's see where they can go from here.
I will say this: Aaron Rodgers definitely did not want to get sacked. He did not want to give Myles Garrett the record. He did not want to end up in Myles Garrett's graveyard. There were throws he threw that he might have held the ball longer if it wasn't Myles Garrett on the other side of the ball. He had an impact on the game. I have no question about that. And I do think it was on. Rodgers is never going to say this. He's going to say it never entered his mind. I think it's bullshit. I absolutely think that Aaron Rodgers did not want to be the guy who gave up, who was the guy that was the sack record guy.
I didn't want that either. Can you imagine this morning if he got the record and they lost the game to the Browns? You'd never hear the end of it.
The only good thing I'm taking away from this game is the fact that they didn't do that. But and I don't agree with what Myles Garrett is saying. I don't think they did it to the detriment of being more concerned about that than they were about winning the game. I just think that they were badly depleted offensively and didn't have the weapons they needed to make any impact in what is a excellent Browns defense. That being said, the Ravens defense is not as good. Their pass rush is nowhere near as dominant as the Browns is, or, it's just not even close. So there should be more opportunities. What I am concerned with is if we don't start to get bodies back, and DK's not hurt, we know he's not going to be able to play because he's suspended.
Yeah, that's rough.
That, which is unfortunate because, you and I both thought they would reduce it to a game based on, just past interactions with that guy and all the other things.
And
Didn't happen.
And Lamar shoving a fan and not getting anything the beginning of the year, man. I mean, it's just, it feels like a setup. It feels like it stinks. And a lot of people are saying it's all scripted. Of course it is. They figure out a way to get these matchups at the end of the year. So they can have one or two they throw in primetime. I'm actually more pissed off it's the Sunday night game. I'm not going to lie.
So am I, because I can't go.
Yeah, it should be Seattle and San Francisco, in my opinion, because it's for the 1 seed in the NFC and for their division. And instead, they're going to put the Steelers and Ravens on the Sunday night game, which means whoever wins that, it's going to probably be on a short week. You give the Ravens an extra day of rest, and then whoever wins that's going to be on a short week going into the wild card round. So,
assumably, they'll let whoever wins that game play on Sunday instead of Saturday.
You would hope.
If they don't, then that's just screwed up. But I knew it from the get-go. I knew it. I told my daughter before the game started. I said, I have a bad feeling about this game. I think we're going to lose, and I think that when we do lose, we're going to be on Sunday Night Football, which is just going to piss me off because I'm not going to be able to go to the game because I can't stay over on Sunday night, and I don't feel like getting home at 5 a.m.
Yeah. So I know the feeling, my friend. I'm in the same boat.
All those things came to fruition. So, there's the upside of this is they generally play well in prime time. They play much better at home on Monday night than they do on Sunday night. But it's prime time. They have, maybe it'll do. Look, I just don't know. Look, Derrick Henry went crazy on the Packers for 240 yards and 1 million touchdowns. I don't even know. The Ravens
touchdowns.
The Ravens have their a little bit of their mojo going. They're going to come in with a head of steam, and we're going to come limping in. That's disturbing. It's not the look you want. It's not where you want to be going into this game. But again, this is still the team that just beat the Ravens, just beat the Dolphins, who were on a winning streak, and just went to Detroit and beat the Packers. It's still the same team, minus pieces. If we get TJ back, which there is no guarantee we're going to get TJ back. If we get TJ back, that's a help. But, if we get Brandon Eccles back, that'll be a help. If we get Pierre back, that could be a help. All those things could be, right? And we won't know till later in the week what it looks like. I will say, if we go into that game the same way we went into this game, I am very concerned that the season will be over at the end of that game.
I hear you. The common link between all three of those teams they beat on the streak, all good running football teams. And I don't think it matters. We'll talk about it later in the week, but I don't think it matters who the Ravens quarterback is. I think you get about the same play. Lamar doesn't scare me, particularly in his current state. He hasn't been 100% all year, but we'll talk about that some more. I do have some optimism, but we'll talk about that later on a later date. It's just, it sucks trying to lick your wounds from this. Maybe some of us were counting our chickens before they hatched. And you just got to know
why I wanted them to lose on Sunday night. Why I wanted the
Ravens
Packers to take care of this.
Oh, the Packers.
I mean, we had somebody talking about that in the comments. I didn't say the Ravens were going to lose to the Packers. I just said I wanted the Ravens to lose to the Packers. Without Lamar, but without Jordan Love, without Micah Parsons, did I expect the Ravens to run all over the Packers the way they did? No, I did not expect.
They've forgotten that Derrick Henry even existed in some of these games. So
I was very surprised that Henry was able to go off for 200 plus yards and 4 touchdowns. Did not see that coming. And so, hey, the Packers blew it, and I'm annoyed with them too. If they just took care of their business at home, we wouldn't have had to worry about this game.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing is there's a lot of people that are saying there were some of the callers on these post-game shows, some of the comments towards, Mike Tomlin. I'm still sitting here like he's still trying to make do with, you got a third string undrafted left tackle. You got a guy that was picked off the scrap heap playing as a left guard, or your 7th round pick. That's it. And then you got to rotate those guys. There was still it was a lot of hodgepodge. You got a 42-year-old quarterback who may still have some broken bones in his hand, right? So Rodgers was not as sharp as you would have liked. There was some miscommunication, obviously, with Valdez-Scantling. The last set of rants, Brian, go toward the officiating, which I don't think did the Steelers any favors in this game, but it still needs to be brought up that it was bad. When we saw that John Hussey was the referee for this game, we already knew there was going to be these long drawn out pauses and breaks in the game, and just what are you guys doing? I mean, we had a Cam Hayward roughing the passer for...
That was a bullshit call.
We had offensive pass interference with Valdez-Scantling that was pretty terrible.
More of a bullshit call because that wasn't even close.
So I'm trying to figure out...
It was so bad.
I'm trying to figure out the kickoff rule. You could correct me if maybe you got more info than I did on this. He was in the air when the ball, whatever the hell they said, and then that was they moved the ball as far as a touchback.
What
or whatever.
I believe they said was his first foot down was in the field of play, and he was moving backwards.
Okay. I mean, yeah, we didn't have a replay.
But
I got my own rants about the Browns, and I would have said more of it, but it's how many mascots and gimmicks do you need to get people to fill seats in that stadium?
I don't care about that.
Yeah, I know, dude. It was gross, but anyway, they're more concerned with that than showing a replay of something that's critical on the field. And then they're showing other goofy ones. They would show the kickoff returns all the time and show the boundaries. And I think they were doing it for Stefanski and company to throw a red flag to see if somebody stepped out ahead of where they were spotting the ball. They were looking for little advantages like that, but some real head scratchers. I know some people were talking about the very end of the game and maybe some offensive pass interference.
I really thought that was OPI, or not OPI. I really thought that was DPI.
Yeah.
On that last play of the game, Denzel Ward goes up, so you could have called face guarding. He never turns around. Contact was made prior to the ball getting there. In my mind, that was pretty much clear defensive pass interference. I'm not at all surprised they didn't call it. Because the fans in Cleveland probably would have rioted, and the refs would have never made it out of the stadium
alive. The narrative too of the Steelers just keep, now the referees are, they moved on from Kansas City and are going to help Pittsburgh win all of these games because
they sure as hell didn't do that.
I mean, 2 of these wins, you've had the Baltimore, you had the close call with the non-catch, and then you had the pass interference calls with Detroit. Maybe the Steelers are much worse. But let me tell you what, the Ravens aren't a very good football team either if we're going to put them in that same category. Yeah, they beat up on an ailing Packers team, and they were able to run the football. They weren't able to stop it. I think the game plan going after Tyson Campbell, you had to find a weak link in that Browns secondary, and it wasn't working. Rodgers wasn't connecting on those passes. And who you're throwing to, maybe if you're throwing to DK Metcalf, it does work. Maybe it does, or maybe he's just out of sync, like we said. It wasn't as bad as the Chargers game, but something certainly wasn't clicking. Wind, weather, wet, whatever. I looked at the struggle of that Eagles versus Bills game too, and the Bills weren't able to move the ball. The Bills struggled against the Cleveland Browns 1 week ago. I was watching that intently the same way I was watching this, and that's the reason why I had an uneasy feeling. You look at the ragtag, no name, there's superstars like a Myles Garrett and maybe Denzel Ward. They're 2 Pro Bowlers, but you look at the rest of the team and you're just like, who are these nobodies? Here's 3 wins. I just knew that, it was going to be tough with that Steelers offense against that Browns defense. I was hoping if they stuck to running the football just a little bit more, 24 carries for 131 yards, I think they could have got something done. But that's where I'm resting.
Here's the other thing, and I'm going to put this on coaching directly and on Arthur Smith. You got a guy in Schlesinger who is barely able to move, refusing to come off the field. The entire second half, that guy's injured and can't move at all, right? He can't cover. He's going to have problems and you don't attack him constantly. There should have been a focus towards the middle of the field constantly because that guy was injured and couldn't play. He could not play up to his normal standards. He was hurt, and we did not target him. And I, had a couple of plays that went that way, but we should have been focused in on that, and we just weren't. And that feels like a huge mistake in my mind.
I agree many times over. So, I mean, it's a tale of, who usually December and into the playoffs is who is the healthiest team. And I guess we'll find
sure
out.
As hell ain't us.
Well, and I don't know that it's the Ravens either. So we're going to find that out in the coming days. And the practice reports will be back at you later this week, probably around New Year's. So folks, enjoy your New Year's holiday. Don't try and let this one get down on you too much. I know it's down to the wire. Steelers are still in it. They still control their destiny. This isn't something where, they do have to beat the Ravens, but they don't have to worry about Buffalo or somebody beating someone else or Kansas City losing or something like that. This is win and in against a team that you've already demonstrated you could defeat. You did it in their building. Now you get them in yours. So bright lights, prime time. We shall see. I'm hopeful. I try to be optimistic. I mean, that's already a playoff game, so this is a big one. So hopefully, being Sunday night, that means the availability of some of these players. That's the only saving grace out of this one, Brian, is you may get an extra day to maybe get a TJ Watt or a James Pierre or Brandon Eccles back on the field.
They were pretty clear in the broadcast that Tomlin stated TJ's not playing again until he has full participation all week long.
So we'll know immediately. Now, does he change his mind if he's a participant Thursday, Friday, but they give him rest on Wednesday? We shall see. I don't know. So, folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Leave a rating or review wherever you're watching or listening from. We appreciate you tuning in to the Steel City Underground podcast. As always, my name's Joe, and his name's Brian. Any closing thoughts, Brian? I got nothing. I hope you had a good or swell Christmas.
Let me pontificate about the goodness of Christmas here for a moment. So here was Christmas. So Christmas this year, my daughter, as many people may or may not know, my daughter's 25. She's on the autism spectrum, so she's got some special needs and some things. We've talked about in the past with the March of Dimes walks, premature birth, all the things that we've talked about with her. This was the first year that she actually chose to buy a Christmas present for somebody on her own. And so she bought her mother a little necklace that says, love mom, which is great. Fantastic. But on top of that, she also gave us as a family a Christmas present because, she went to Fairleigh Dickinson University and majored in creative writing. So she graduated, she's got a creative writing degree, and she has been writing her first novel. And so on Christmas Day, she informed us the first draft is done.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Impressive. I mean, I did some creative writing back in college myself. I guess that's how I landed into this stuff. Communications, everything else. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty awesome, Brian. I don't know that I can compete with that. I went to a indoor water park, which was kind of fun, and I got to lay in a hot tub and relax a little bit and take a load off, so that was nice with the rest of the extended fam. So we all did a very simple dinner, and we exchanged some nice gifts, and everybody had smiles on their faces, so it's all the more you could ask for. Wish I would have had a little more of a smile on my face over the weekend. Maybe I'll walk around, chest up and everything else, but we'll talk about that later this week.
I got my Victory Monday shirt hanging, ready to go if it happens. But I have this feeling it's going to stay in the closet till next year.
Yeah, no. Well, next year. Very smartly.
100% it's going to stay in the closet till next year.
Until January 5th, my friend. Yes, January 5th, then you can pull it back
ideally,
out.
That's, I should have said, I'm worried it's going to stay in the closet till next season.
Yeah.
But it will definitely stay in the closet until next year.
Yep, obviously. So, all right, folks, that'll do it for us. Once again, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. Till next time, Happy New Year's, and we encourage everyone out there to be safe. Be good.
See you next year.
And we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.